take you on a little journey here from global to local, but I'm going to start with a question. When's the last time someone stopped and asked you, how do you feel? Not that quick question in the hallway of, hey, how's it going? Good, how are you? But actually stopped and said, how do you feel? It's a question that often goes unasked, and when we do ask it, do we really take time to listen to the answer? Yet it might be one of the most important questions as leaders that we take the time to understand about the people we've been asked to lead. Because when you look at the data, which is something we do a lot at Gallup, it tells us that the world is struggling with an emotional recession. And now at Gallup, this conversation isn't theoretical for us. We've studied the world's emotional health in 140 countries for more than 20 years. And our most recent report shows us that worry and stress remain consistently high across the globe. Nearly 4 in 10 adults say they felt a lot of worry yesterday, and more than a third said they felt a lot of stress, both of which are well above where they were just a decade ago. Now, if these were inflation or unemployment numbers, they'd be all over the front page news. Just kidding. All over social media. But because they're emotional, we don't talk nearly enough about them, even though they shape everything from our health to our workplaces to the trust that people have in the communities in which they live. And that trust, or lack of trust, shows up in every workplace and in every leader's daily reality. Now, this is what we call the emotional economy. And it's the part of the economy that runs on how people feel. Now, let's add a couple other layers to this. We could keep going with emotions, but it's important to notice that overall well-being declined last year. And when we think about global engagement, that's dropped from 23% to 21%. Now, these numbers can seem concerning and dismal until we pause and say, wait a minute, there's something we can look up to here. And the organizations that Gallup works with and studies every day see a very different trend line in engagement. So it tells us that it's not just wild optimism to think of what could be done, but it's actually possible. And there's companies all over the world that are doing something a little bit different. Now, our global data tells us something else that's very powerful. Where peace and stability are strong, people live longer, healthier, and more hopeful lives. Where peace is weaker, anger and sadness rise. And those countries tend to have shorter life expectancy. So emotional health isn't just about happiness. It's actually the infrastructure of things like performance, peace, and even prosperity. Those patterns aren't numbers on a spreadsheet, they're actual people. We need to remember that because we see versions of them everywhere we look. Now, at the same time, 88% of adults worldwide said they were treated with respect yesterday. This is one of the highest levels that Gallup has ever recorded. Now, that tells us the world hasn't lost its humanity, haven't lost its sense of humor, and they definitely haven't lost the capacity for connection. So as technology continues to transform how we live and how we work, maybe the next revolution in leadership might be something that AI can't replicate, because maybe it's about bringing back humanity at work. Now, when Gallup surveys people across the world, we're not just measuring faraway struggles. We're measuring patterns that exist right here. So those same factors that are connected to disengagement or stress in Singapore or Sao Paulo exist in Lincoln, they exist in Council Bluffs, and they exist right here in Omaha. So we have to remember the emotional economy isn't something that's out there. It's not something that others need to be thinking about every single day. It's actually right here. So let's think about what that looks like in our community. It looks like your child's math teacher, who's literally running on fumes, still expected to inspire 30 students before lunch, and heaven forbid she makes the mistake of using the numbers 6 and 7. Which I still don't understand. Did anybody see that that's the word of the year as of today? If you can explain it to me, I'd love time with you afterwards. Okay, it's also the nurse who's taking care of an aging or ailing parent, and they're doing double shifts because they're short-staffed, but they're making sure that every room they walk into, that patient feels the care and compassion that they need. And this one might hit home for a lot of you in the room. It's that manager who's trying to hold a team together while she holds herself together because she's still showing up, still bringing calm, and leading because her team is counting on her. Now, these are the quiet acts that keep our workplace and our communities running. We need to remember behind every number in our data is a human being that is doing their best and often caring a lot more than anyone can see. So what can we do? At Gallup, we talk about this all the time. This is how we work with people, how we try to help them be up at that top line I shared before. Let's start with measure what matters. Treat engagement and well-being the same way you treat metrics like growth, profit, turnover, or any of the metrics that matter most to your business. Next, invest in your managers. 70% of the engagement in your teams can be directly related to your managers. Yet globally, more than half of them say they've never had any training. Imagine what that could look like if they felt equipped to do what we're asking them to do. And finally, lead with hope. In another one of our studies across 52 countries, the number one thing people said they needed from leaders was not charisma, it was not another strategy PowerPoint, it's hope. And hope is contagious. When you create it, it spreads. It spreads through teams, through companies, through families, and through communities. This is why we advise leaders to track emotions like infrastructure and treat it as something that you should manage and not avoid. Every person in this room has the power to influence how someone feels. How they feel about their day, do they feel seen, do they feel safe, and maybe do they feel inspired? Because when we take that seriously, engagement isn't a trend line and a metric, it actually becomes a movement. And it's what leadership looks like when it's really working. And it's the kind of leadership that our community can model to the world. So here's my challenge to all of us. Tomorrow, as you walk into your office, your boardroom, your classroom, or before you hit join on that first of many Zoom calls in your day, ask yourself one question. What does it feel like to be led by me? Because that's not a soft question, it's a performance question. Because how people feel when they work with you determines how they perform for you. And that is the emotional economy in action. So even with all the stress and worry in the world, there's one of the stats I shared earlier that actually gives me a lot of hope. That 88% of people said they were treated with respect yesterday. That says the foundation for recovery is absolutely there. It's far from a lost cause. And here in Omaha, our community is built on that exact same foundation. And when I think about that, the thing it tells me is, why can't Omaha be the model of both economic and emotional prosperity for the world? Because it can start right here at home. So the question isn't whether we can afford to focus on the emotional economy. The question actually is, how long can we afford not to? Because perhaps the most important thing we can give to people as leaders is hope. We do face a global emotional recession, but unlike GDP, emotions are not bound by scarcity. So when leaders help people feel seen, safe, respected, and inspired, they actually ignite the most renewable resource we have in the economy, and that resource is human potential. Over time, that is how we change the course of the world's emotional trend line, through one organization, one community, and one act of hope at a time. Thank you.